Wausau mayor's race, where Katie Rosenberg was upset by Doug Denny, a city council member. And I've already stated, basically, again, how the cycle works with, progressive versus conservative leadership. But I can't let it go without as well making note of some of the other things that were said during the race. There's, for example, State Senator Corey Tomczyk, the person who is trying to sue a news outlet out of business. Despite his lawsuit being thrown out of court, he's continuing to appeal and rack up legal costs, trying to draw the Wausau Pilot and Review out of business. He also said recently that Katie Rosenberg, the mayor, should be an actress because she's, quote, always so emotional. And that's the kind of rhetoric that we've been putting up with for far too long. But there's also this from the chairman of the state Republican Party, Brian Schimming, who said, congratulations to Republican-backed Doug Denny on his triumph in the Wausau mayoral election. His stunning victory over incumbent Mayor Katie Rosenberg marks an unmistakable repudiation of failed Democrat policies and is a win for central Wisconsin values. Never minding the attempt to make Democrat a pejorative of Democratic if you refuse to use the correct word. But again, what we're saying here is the weight of the Wisconsin Republican Party getting involved in mayoral elections and school board elections and other elections that for all of our lifetime had been nonpartisan. People will say, well, Democratic parties are involved. They are now. They are now because for several cycles past, everybody looked askance at the Republicans and said, you're not supposed to be involved in this. And finally, enough Democratic parties at the state and county level said, okay, I guess this is how we're doing this now. And so these races have become partisan, and the amount of outside dark money that came in through Republican circles to smear Katie Rosenberg is rather telling. But it took that much of an effort to convince just enough voters to go in a different direction in that 52-48 race. There was equally sleazy behavior down in Milwaukee, where in one case, a landlord sent an email to all of his tenants threatening a rent hike if the Milwaukee Public School referendum were to pass. Now, while that's not patently illegal, it's illegal for an employer to dictate to an employee how to vote or to threaten their job, if they don't vote a certain way. It's not illegal for a landlord to send an email like this threatening rent increases if they happen to support a referendum, or maybe in the future it'll be a candidate that they don't like. These are the kinds of things that, again, should be called out. Even if they're not illegal, they're certainly wrong, and people should call attention to it and, let others know that we're better than that in this country. Well, at least we should be. Which brings us to the former president. Here's a couple of things that he had to say yesterday in Michigan. These audio clips are from Michigan, but he said many of the same things a couple of hours later in Green Bay. Here's him basically making a threat in Michigan that if he doesn't win, there's not going to be any more elections in the United States.
Because if we don't win on November 5th, I think our country is going to cease to exist. It could be the last election we ever have. I actually mean that. We don't win. I think this could be the last election we ever have. That's where our country's going.
Now, this is
if
what
we don't win on November 5th, I think
this is what he's saying. He's saying to his supporters, you go ahead and engage in violence after November 5th if I don't win. That's what that is. That is a flat out encouragement, appealing to a subset of people who just listen to this next comment. Where, and again, we're talking about a country that desperately needs immigration reform. And there was a chance to get it, and Donald Trump killed it because he still wants to use rhetoric like this when describing migrants.
The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals.
They're not humans. They're animals. That's where fascism starts to lay an anchor and build a foundation, if we listen to words like that. But of course, closer to home, as people gave their pregame addresses prior to Trump's appearance in Green Bay, you get comments like this by Congressman Tom Tiffany.
In Joe Biden's America, he has a Department of Agriculture that has they have an agency, the Civil Rights, Diversity, and Inclusion Agency. You know, I think back to when I was a kid growing up on the farm. Diversity used to mean when we'd have Jerseys and Guernseys along with our Holsteins. I remember inclusion used to
right
be
in there, in that soundbite right there, is the ugliness of somebody who's grown up amongst nothing but white people, who sees that anybody else is different. And for him, diversity isn't something to be celebrated and to be encouraged, but to be compared to farm animals. That's Tom Tiffany. And you heard all those people booing with a mindset that has to be addressed, because right now they think that they are victims because people that were underrepresented and repressed for generations are suddenly not being so oppressed any longer. And I'm going to play one clip about somebody talking about their 401k at the rally. This is why they supported Trump, and you'll have to forgive there's some wind noise in the middle of it, but give a listen to this.
Who's the only person who can continue to allow us to buy gas-powered cars in 2030?
No, I'm sorry. That's Glenn Grothman. We'll get to it in another segment where somebody talks about how their 401k has still not recovered from the post-COVID recession, and that somehow that's Joe Biden's fault. Folks, we've got the best economy in the world that had a comeback from the pandemic recession. Best in the world. Not perfect, still room to grow, but if your 401k hasn't made it back then, you need to talk to your money manager, because we're at a stock market that's been at all-time highs for weeks, if not months. But again, if Donald Trump tells enough people the economy's bad and migrants are animals, too many folks, sadly, are going to believe these untrue things to be true.